I think that's us. I think we're live.
We're live. All right. Kia ora, everybody, and welcome to the first collective of 2026. I am Sean Ackland, joined by Paul Barlow. So it's a two-man team to start us off in 2026. Paul, how was your holidays?
I haven't actually had a holiday yet. I've been working non-stop since the last time we did one of these. I continue working. I don't get a break until I think the end of March, maybe April. I'm doing a whole bunch of work at the moment with Auckland Council around a series of events that we run over summer. So last weekend I got to work with people like Anika Moa, which was absolutely brilliant. Yesterday I got to work with people like Ray, whose song Toi Tu Te Tiriti did very well during the protest. Absolutely amazing to see him get up on stage because he brings so much energy to what he's doing. But when he turned around and he asked the audience, are we going to change the government in November? And just the crowd went mad. Like, it was absolutely brilliant to see. And then next weekend, I think I'm doing opera for Valentine's Day. So it's
awesome.
No break for me.
No. Yeah. Well, daughter, dad over here, three-year-old at home. So yeah, not like even though teachers are meant to have holidays, which is news.
Only bad politicians think teachers actually get holidays during the holidays.
No, they don't. They know they're full of shit when they say that. They know they're lying. Yeah, they know. They've been told, because they say it. The teachers will say no, and here's the proof, and then they'll say it anyway because, it's a way to kind of scapegoat teachers, as a way of kind of riling up their ill-informed voter base. So yeah, we're back at school. It is all systems go at the moment, as it is for most schools around the motu, and that very much. We've got, so it's a little bit tricky at the moment, and it's always this way in election years because education is such a political football. You have consecutive governments come in, introduce these new kind of initiatives that teachers have to get their heads around. And if that government lose that election, then there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff for us to learn. And it's one of the most frustrating things about being a teacher is a lot of the admin that you do in regards to what the ministry hands down, you're told to forget that for whenever the next government comes in. And yeah, it is one of the most frustrating parts of my job because I'm in a middle leadership role at my work, and that's part of having...
Under Judith's logic, then you should be on what, 250, 300,000 a year?
Yeah. I am on $350,000 a year as a middle management teacher. I drive my Lamborghini to work every day.
That makes sense.
And the leftover money I have, I am sure to take my family on a trip to some Caribbean island every year. Being somebody who makes $350,000 a year. And obviously I'm joking, but it was enormously frustrating that when she said that, it fell on people like us to correct her. How many times in the New Zealand Herald or in RNZ, like, they did push back and they kind of go, hey, no, they don't, which, by the way, they're fucking minimum, guys. But I just want to kind of put it this way. For a teacher, keep in mind, to be making... I think the number she said was 150. What was the actual number? I think it was like 150,000.
140?
Might have been $140,000. All right. Without telling you my salary, I am middle management, which is right below senior leadership, and I don't make nearly that much. We have these things called management units. I, in a middle leadership position, have two management units. And in order to be making that amount of money, you would have to have 10 management units as a teacher. We have a name for people in education with 10 management units. They're called principals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, The other big sort of education shake-up announcement in the last couple of weeks has been something called a school report, where every term teachers write reports to parents going, hey, this is how your kids are doing in school. I think that's a great idea personally. Is this something new, or is this something that's been tried before?
Well, it's not. It's reports are nothing new. I've always had reports sent home. I've never worked at a school that doesn't send reports home. What is new is the universality in comments. So right now it is kind of per student, and I'm of two minds about it. One part of me is saying it's going to be easier workload-wise, and it's probably going to be cleaner. However, if I'm somebody with maybe a child that is maybe a high needs learner, if I'm a parent with a high needs learner child, I'm probably not going to appreciate a copy and paste job that's going to be kind of across all students. Strikes me, education is not a place where you want to apply one size fits all policy. That is, I think that
it sounds to me like, as a parent, I would be getting cut and paste information back from the school. It doesn't feel personalized. But I also haven't, to be fair, had a huge chance to look into exactly what it is that they're promising, other than a whole bunch of tick boxes.
It is tick, and that's what I mean. It's going to be a lot less work for us, which, you know, I appreciate. But in terms of efficacy, I don't think parents are going to be winning on this. I don't think students are going to be getting kind of fruitful feedback as well. And I don't, it's not, I think it's bad policy. It's not the worst policy. If I were them, I would, you know, right now, reports are actually quite easy to write. They're easier than they've ever been to write, and it's mainly because, you know, of you can just kind of, it used to be when I first started, I would kind of go, all right, well, I want to kind of communicate this information in a tactful way to parents. You can't just say, Billy's a pain in my ass, and if it does any fucking work, I hope you have a family business lined up for him to go into, because no workplace would ever have him. You can't say that. But if I said that into, you know, ChatGPT, said, hey, could you please make this tactful and write this for a parent in a kind of formal manner, it is helpful in that regard. So I don't know. I think it's, at best, it makes no difference in terms if you're a parent or a student. At worst, it is kind of homogenizing our feedback to students, and that we're not giving specific actual, because like you can have all these tick boxes you like. There are 100 different things that come at you every day, and there's not going to be a tick box for everything. And so, yeah, that's kind of my criticism to it. And also, I don't think we should be rolling out any education policy when you have potentially 1 year left in coalition. I think the time to kind of introduce that policy should be at the beginning of each term. I don't think it should be at the end. So I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of anything which is part of the parcel.
One of the headlines that I saw, I think it was this week, which to me struck me as a little bit racist, was and I honestly can't remember where it came from. It might have been RNZ, about a dip in attendance. Parents being warned about attendance dips around Lunar New Year, which is this month. Obviously a very important time for a lot of Asian students, people who have come over from that part of the world. Is that something that is actually impacting education? You know, kids taking a day or two off for something that's a significant cultural event like that should be making headline?
No, of course not. And you've got to kind of consider that a lot of the kids who, usually the students where it's an actual, when it gets to a point where it's an actual burden academically, it's not because they're taking time off to, go on a trip to Europe or to kind of celebrate an event. Usually there are serious problems at home. And if I don't think addressing attendance the issue of attendance begins with, let's try and, let's target students for, celebrating religious events. If you want, listen, this is easy. If you want students to be showing up to school, well, maybe you need to kind of incentivize them to do so. We had a really good school lunch program once upon a time. Mm-hmm. And when we introduced that school lunch program, there was a material spike in attendance. And these are the facts. And when we got rid of that dipped again. Now, rightly or wrongly, these are the facts. So I think if you're going to if you want to address attendance, you need to address material conditions of students who are below the poverty line. And that's, what do I know? I don't. What do I know? I was never a reality TV producer. I know. I was never behind the camera of such prestige TV efforts such as Piha Rescue and Animal Control. So what do I know?
That's just what you need to be in the industry these days is to be making reality TV. It's a bare minimum. And one of the things that we used to do growing up in the Waikato was field days. Every year on field days, you lose a ton of kids because it's farming communities, So, dad and mama take you down, we'll do a day at the field days. And the attendance on the Friday would always be absolutely abysmal because parents are like, you don't want to go on the Saturday because everyone's really busy. We'll take the kids out on the Friday. Most schools in the region started implementing a teachers only day on the Friday.
Yeah.
Because what is the point of fighting that? Because your parents are still going to take the kids out of the school. Didn't seem to cause any issues, didn't seem to have any problems with it. And the field days are still going as strong as ever, but they're national supporters. So I suppose that's not such a big problem for them.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
It is problematic, very problematic. Speaking of national, they have given us a date in November for the election. I know Jordan's on his way in. He's flicked us a message just going, he's a little bit running around a bit crazy at the moment, having almost lost his voice, but he will be here. So I'm going to hit him up about this as well when he gets here. But I'm really curious about your perspective on this date, because there's a lot of issues happening around that time. I know with tertiary education, is it similar with sort of those 18-year-olds who are at the tail end of secondary education, or your own experience? That date is what do you feel about
I want to make a point here. I want to make a point, and I don't think you're going to argue with me on this, and I don't think anybody in the comments is going to argue with me on this as well. If National lose this election, it will be because young people showed up to vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, if you are I want you guys to think back to when you were 18. I want you to think back to those NCEA, maybe if you're old enough, School C exams. I want you to get into your head at that time. Do you is voting on your mind? No, perhaps not even for the more politically engaged students, let alone the students who aren't politically engaged. So when Christopher Luxon chooses a date that falls right smack dab in the middle of tertiary and NCEA exams, and it is at the beginning of NCEA exams, and so with tertiary, I think it's somewhere kind of in the middle. It's at the beginning of NCEA, the first exams. These kids are not going to have voting on their mind. They're going to have their exams on the mind, and to be honest, kind of rightfully so, because these are really high stakes. This is a really high stakes period for these kids, and the government, call me a conspiracy theorist, the government choosing that date, which I think is later than usual. Historically, it's always been around October period, right?
Under Labour, it's tended to be October. for the last couple. It was early in, I think, 2002. Helen Clark called it, I think it was June, July in 2002. Yeah, and what we've seen with John Key, he was always a little bit later and pushed it back towards the end of October, the beginning of November.
Yeah, so we're seeing it pattern out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the logic that we've been given for this date is essentially it gives them time to get everything sorted before Christmas, because it just takes so darn long to count those votes and then 40 days to negotiate contracts for the coalition between three parties who agree on everything. So we need to make sure that it is left as late as possible before Christmas, and that's sort of the date that they chose. But there's a whole bunch of other factors that come into play with it as well, around information that Treasury releases, as well as school holidays and rugby games, All Black games. It's a bad idea to set up an election on the day that the All Blacks are playing Australia.
Yeah. So I think, like you might think I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't think I am being conspiratorial. I think it is yet another in a long line of decisions to dissuade young people from voting. And it's listen, I might be willing to give them a little bit of grace if they hadn't have already kind of implemented other measures. You've got to consider these guys have kind of, it's now you've got to be enrolled by October 24th. And this is a true story, guys. I remember I just rocked up to vote one year, and they enrolled me enrolled me in that moment, and it was the best. It was awesome, and I've been enrolled ever since. And this was at a time where I wasn't really politically engaged, and that same guy who's kind of like, maybe I'll give it a crack. I probably should. That guy's going to be turned away now, and so
when I first moved up to Auckland. Because it was a rush up. It was literally I got a job offer and can you be here next week kind of thing. So it was literally packing everything up in a week, rush up here, get everything done, find a place, me and my son up here. It was the week of the by-election to replace Jonathan Coleman in the North Coast electorate. And so I literally bowled on up, coming out, oh shit, there's an election, going in to register, and can register at the time to go and vote at the same time. And it was a lifesaver, otherwise I couldn't have had my say at all during that election as somebody who was going to be living in the electorate. The thing that annoyed me the most about that election is, as I was walking in, this old couple was walking out, and the complaint I got was, I can't believe that my choices were two Maoris. And it's just like, okay, I'm definitely voting to make sure that those people don't get to have the say.
I know. So I can't remember who it was. I wish I could give this person the credit, because I was like, yeah, I understand the temptation. I don't know if I'm bored yet. There was some guy on Facebook. He spoke about, hey, is it time that we maybe just consider saying that if you're over 60, you're not allowed to vote? And in my mind, I'm like, oh, that would make sense.
I can certainly see the benefit of it. Yeah. I think it would be better to limit how old you can be to run for office, because people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, they still need to access things like healthcare, which is paid for by the government.
Of course.
So they should have a say on that. Yeah. But if you look at, we have at least one 80-year-old in Parliament at the moment who maybe shouldn't be there, because he's clearly very susceptible to online conspiracy theories that he reads on Twitter. He had apparently a bit of a meltdown tonight trying to defend the free speech platform that makes objectionable material around children. So,
really?
So
that's
maybe there should be an age limit.
Yeah, that's a lovely little. That's always where it goes with these free speech warriors. It's funny how with the left, whenever we talk about free speech, it's usually to defend someone like Jimmy Kimmel, to kind of go, hey, you can criticize our world leaders, and you shouldn't be. Whenever it's the right, it always lands into that arena. Every single time.
I think the Free Speech Union actually does this really well. Like they are really good at personifying. We're going to give you the worst person possible and say it's about free speech. And the guy that they've got here at the moment is Pinker? Plinker?
Oh,
Plonker?
Pinker. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Paul, come on. No. Surely, Are you talking about the Steve Pinker
The
from?
one who wrote Epstein on why it was okay what he was doing?
Surely not. Surely they wouldn't. No. I refuse to believe that the same guys who are pill clutching for weeks on end about the Benjamin Doyle Instagram handle, they surely would not get somebody who was mentioned in the Epstein files more than Jesus was mentioned in the Bible. I'm sure they're not going to get that guy to talk.
I know, that would just be crazy. I mean, to be fair, our free speech union was set up by our current race relations commissioner so that they could bring in white supremacists to give talks.
And that's, yeah. So my little conspiracy theory on the free speech union and all these free speech purists is that they don't give a shit about your freedom of speech. What they want to do is they want to shift the dial in terms of what is acceptable. That's what this is an exercise in. Because if they care, and this is kind of, I don't know what the free speech union response was to Kimmel, but if they were principled in that, they would be targeting. They would have, like when David Seymour, I don't know if it was David Seymour, or certainly somebody within the ACT Party who said that the Māori MPs should face criminal prosecution for the haka in Parliament. I'm like, oh, surely the Free Speech Union are going to step in here. No, crickets. Crickets. When those youth MPs last year arrived in Parliament and were told what they couldn't talk about, surely the Free Speech Union are going to step in. Nothing. Crickets. But when it's a Posey Parker, when it is somebody hateful, suddenly they are principled on this topic. And it has something to do with their freedom of speech. It has to do with right now the things that we like to, the things that a lot of us in the Epstein class like to do. A lot of the things that we in the Epstein class like to do are things that aren't socially acceptable. But if we can kind of make certain speech acceptable, we can move people on that.
Yes.
That's my kind of take on the. And I'm not limiting it to that kind of behavior, but certainly there is some real I think if the past month has showed you anything, there is some truly degenerative actions happening within that movement. And I'm not talking about the right-wing movement. I'm talking into that kind of neoliberal technocrat movement that certain right-wing figures fall into. So, yeah. That's
I'm kind of curious what you think they're going to be doing this year. And it's an election year. They have a vested interest that I hate using the conspiracy fueled term, the Atlas network, but it is Atlas connected groups have a really strong influence at the moment with this particular government. We have an election year. We have groups that are set up specifically to back each other up. So Hobson's Pledge comes out, says something racist. The Free Speech Union comes out and goes, yeah, well, of course they can say something like that because free speech. I'm kind of curious what your view is of what's going to happen this year with these groups going into the election.
Yeah, so actually this is something me and my wife spoke about yesterday because obviously I think us, like a lot of people who are watching the news of these groups, now, I'm not saying Atlas are connected to what's happening over with Epstein, but there is certainly overlap with people within these networks and people who were part of what was going on that island. And there's good news and bad news that I think is going to come from this. Here is the bad news. I don't think we're going to see any convictions. I don't think anybody's going to go to jail for this. And that's the bad news. Here's the good news. The outrage from both the left and the right and the rank and file voter, that's not going away. And to be fair to a lot of and this is something that it seems that the right and left can agree on. It's not, we are kind of dogs with bones on this topic. And I think it's not really about the networks that we need to be I think it's the networks that actually need to be worried about this, because every politician in the Western world is going to want to have their hands clean of any connection to those files. They're going to want 100 degrees of separation from anybody in those files. So as far as these networks go, I imagine these the right-wing parties are going to be, if they're smart, are going to be very vigilant of these ties, because they're going to know that any ties that they have are going to be scrutinized. They are going to be communicated to the media. Maybe not necessarily the mainstream people, but certainly people at our end are going to be loud about it. You know, the moment that we get a whiff of anybody in the Epstein class having any ties to our elections, we are going to be loud about it. And if you're smart as a politician, you are going to want to keep your arm's length away. So I actually would be curious to see whether or not these networks are welcomed this election in the way that they have been in the past. That's kind of where I'm at. I think the good news to come from this, what I think is going to happen is, over time, all these politicians, all these kind of tech figures, all these business figures, they are going to want to kind of wash their hands of anybody who was in those files, and these guys are just going to be kind of expelled from polite society. And I think that's going to be their penance. And so that's where I'm at. That's where I think this is going to go in regards to those networks.
We have at the moment a government that is led by a political party that gave Peter Thiel citizenship.
A golden visa, right?
A number of times.
Yeah.
But to be fair, there is currently only two MPs who are in that cabinet, who are in that national party that gave Peter Thiel that citizenship. Is this something that the Nats should be sitting there crapping themselves about?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, this was something, and this is something that kind of they should have seen coming. They really should have seen this coming. It's not really, I think the shock of what we're seeing in these files in regards to who's in them, that's not the shocking part. We kind of knew. In fact, Peter Thiel, he outright told Joe Rogan on his podcast that he had exchanges with Epstein. He was pretty out in the open about it. And I remember thinking, when we kind of gave Peter Thiel that golden visa, I'm like, this is going to really bite them in the ass. And yeah, I think they should be very worried about it. They should be, because it makes for a very effective attack.
The golden visa is something that the current National Party's also brought back in, because it was removed under the last Labor government. Does it have the tarnish because of this? Yes,
I think so. Yeah, because aside from, you've got to consider, what are these golden visas being used for? A lot of them are overseas billionaires who, because their companies have destroyed their own country's environment and are close to leaving them rotting into polluted wastelands, they need to use our country as an underground bunker. That's what a lot of these guys are using their golden visas for. They're using them to buy up, to, create little homes in New Zealand. And, there's a real kind of malevolence behind this policy that I think also belies the fact that this national government, as Pat would say, is not your grandfather's national government. I see Christopher Luxon different to the way I've viewed past national leaders. I forget the name of the industry. What is the name of that industry where people go into like a struggling company and break it apart, sell it for parts?
Oh, shit. I know what you mean, but yeah, my brain is like completely fried.
I might just Google it quickly because it was Mitt Romney. That was what it was.
It's like a butcher. Private equity.
Was it private equity?
Or asset stripping? These are comments that are coming through. So Brother Monk's gone private equity. Sam's
it's kind of liquidation. Yeah, so basically it's what Mitt Romney did, and it's kind of what did him in during 2012 is he kind of made his money by going into companies, stripping them for parts, and kind of that's how he made his fortune. That's kind of what Luxon is doing with this country. I think Luxon, he spent decades in America. He sees New Zealand as an asset. The other day, he posted on Facebook, New Zealand is the greatest country on planet Earth. And I ended up replying, hey, Christopher Luxon didn't finish his sentence here. New Zealand is the greatest country on planet Earth to strip for parts and sell to the highest bidder. And I think that has been his intention. And part of kind of letting all these billionaires into this country is, an exercise in that wider political project.
Have you ever seen why New Zealand gets picked for this as a bolt hole? Because it's one of those 6 degrees of separation kind of things. It's sort of super weird. So there's a British politician called Jacob Rees-Mogg who is a stuffy conservative. I think he was Chancellor of the Exchequer or something like that, something high up within the Conservative Party when they were in power. Very boring, very annoying, very, very conservative man. His father wrote a book late last century about the ways to survive the apocalypse. And number one was buy farmland in New Zealand, because it'll be one of the few places that still has farmland if there's a nuclear apocalypse. So his father's influence was put out into groups and super rich, super wealthy people. Peter Thiel himself has said that book was what inspired him to come to New Zealand and build what he built here. And he's told all of these other people like Sam Altman, the CEO of ChatGPT, I think it is. So they've agreed that they'll come to New Zealand if this happens, if there's a nuclear war. And it's all because of that. In that book, they had one individual who was still in Parliament that they named as their biggest concern, the biggest thorn in their side that would stop it from happening. You'll never guess who it was.
What year are we talking? Can you give me
This was 1996 that the book was written, but this MP is still in Parliament.
Oh, it's Winston, right?
Winston, yeah. He was seen by these ultra-wealthy people as a potential thorn in the side that would stop them being able to do what they were doing. Now he's sold out to them.
Well, that's his bread and butter, right? He's just a political chameleon. Here's what that tells me. We as New Zealanders, we are in a position to save the world from nuclear catastrophe. We really are. We really are, because guys, these billionaires, they have enormous power in their own countries. The reason that they're choosing New Zealand is because we're giving them a safety net. We take away that safety net, it forces them to maybe be a little bit more altruistic in their own countries, maybe start giving a shit about what they're doing to their country's environment, maybe start giving a shit about the politicians that they're getting behind. New Zealand is in a very powerful position here. If we say, fuck off, if we apply our immigration standards to billionaires that we do to other regions in the world, we have a chance to prevent nuclear apocalypse, guys. So
there was an interview this week with Hassan Minhaj, and he's talking to somebody who is a wealth expert that was dealing with these billionaires who were like, oh, I'm going to go live in New Zealand kind of thing. And he asked her whether or not she thought they were insane. She goes, I can't comment on that. And the look on her face is, holy shit, these people are nuts. He goes, is there something that they get wrong? And she goes, yeah, they'd be dead before they got here. If it even with an hour's warning of what's going on, would still not make it from where they usually are to an airport to get on a plane that's fueled enough, that's got enough fuel to get you to New Zealand to do what you need to do. You would be dead. It wasn't even worth the money that they spent. But they're rich, so they don't think that way.
One of my favorite movies of the past 10 years was a film. It was in the middle of Rian Johnson's Knives Out trilogy, Glass Onion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody in the chat has seen it. For a lot of people of the three films, that's their least favorite. That's my favorite because I feel like it's the first ever kind of movie. We've always seen this trope of the evil genius billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And spoiler alert for those who may not have seen Glass Onion, we find out at the end that yes, it was in fact the billionaire who did it. The reason that, but in kind of a upending of that trope, the detective found it out very easily because the billionaire was fucking stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's any kind of myth that I hope dies in the era of Elon Musk, is that these guys, they're not the Edison figures that they present themselves as. They certainly aren't. And that's kind of, that idea was very much explored in Glass Onion. And at the end, it's Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig. He kind of is like, well, you're an idiot. And of course you did it because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm able to figure out is because it's such a stupid fucking plan. How many times have we had that conversation when we've seen something that Elon Musk has, some initiative that Elon Musk has rolled out? Someone just wrote hubris as a weapon. Really, that sums it up very well. These guys, there's an old expression, I love it. Born on third base, they think they've hit a home run. All of them are in the positions they are in because of legacy privilege.
There's a known personality in Christchurch who I have heard about completely against my will, who is very much in that category, who has inherited a family business, family wealth, and seems to think that everything he does is a success because he's just absolutely brilliant at what he does. Is that something that you think happens a lot in this country?
Yeah. I don't want to talk about I don't want to say the guy's name. I'll love to talk about him because he will love it. Paul, he's my favorite person. He's my favorite person. He hates me. And I'm sure he thinks I hate him. I don't. I love him. He's my favorite person on social media. For those in the comment section, let's just say his name rhymes with Thorncastle. And his first name.
So it's not this one.
Oh, are you not? Am I thinking of a different guy?
No, Voldemort. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, he's my favorite person because I don't know if anybody is familiar with this dude. He's big on Facebook. And yeah, Paul, you found out about him against your will. I found out about him against my will when I kind of joined Facebook because he posts like 50 times a day. You know, some thoughts are best left inside.
Is it that old Abraham Lincoln saying, it's best to not show the world you're an idiot?
Whoops. Yeah, this guy, he's my favorite because everything that I like to warn people about I feel like he is the final boss of the ACT political project. I'm like, if the ACT party were to take human form, it would be this guy. And I love him being there. And people will say, oh, why do you give him the engagement? And I am of the belief that sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been giving him a lot of sunlight lately, much to my enjoyment, although less to my enjoyment lately because, to be honest, it's getting to a point where it's not even fun. It's getting to a point where I'm like, come on, man, too easy. You're just right down the plate for me. So, yeah. Let's not talk about that Rube any more than what he would like. Someone said he is fueled by outrage. I agree. So don't give him your outrage. Give him your mockery. That he doesn't want.
One of the things I think is really funny about people who are trying to do the outrage farming thing now on the right is they're in power. So every time they sit there and they do an outrage and, oh, things are terrible, why can't things be like this? They come across as, well, we want more. They come across as, it's not good enough for me because I'm greedy or I'm horrible or both. So no matter how much they sit there and get angry at things, they've had 2 years already in power in this country. They've had a year in power in the States. They're currently shaping the world in terrible ways and they're still angry and upset. So rage baiting from the right it makes me laugh for that reason.
Oh, it's really not landing the way it was a few years ago, because it used to be woke and it used to be liberal tears kind of thing. That shit isn't landing the way it used to. And that udder has kind of been dry for a while now. So I think they're going to need to find a new angle to go down. And I don't know what they're going to have left. The reason that they love to pursue these culture war topics is because they don't want us talking about how shit they are on economic policies. They don't want us looking closer and scrutinizing the economic element of their political project. So they'll talk about Billie Eilish at the Grammys. They'll talk about something that some person with 20 followers said on TikTok, and they'll try and create this kind of false equivalence of the right and the left. And we see that lots with someone like Piers Morgan. We see that heaps where, if you see a right-wing figure, a major right-wing figure, maybe say something horrible, then it becomes, oh, yeah, sure. But here's a good example. When you had the ICE shooting, where you had Trump calling the victim a domestic terrorist, when you had Charlie Kirk, the Charlie Kirk assassination, every single high-profile Democrat, liberal figure, even progressive commentator, all the way to the most far left. Hassan Piker cried on his stream watching that footage, shed tears for this man. And, Piers Morgan, I'm sure he found a couple of people on TikTok celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and he treats what the president says as if there's a moral equivalence here. And it is an infuriating thing that the right wing do. I think it's in its dying days, hopefully. Yeah.
Do we have an equivalent of that here?
Yes, Ryan Bridge. Okay. Right, straight. Oh, and Duncan Garner, Ryan Bridge and Duncan Garner. Yeah, those guys. Those guys on their respective white grievance podcasters, just trying to kind of, and actually with, I would say more Duncan Garner, because Ryan Bridge seems to be kind of morphing into more of just a right-wing commentator, more akin to Sean Plunkett. Duncan Garner seems to be doing this facade of left and right are the same, blah, 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 when clearly we're not. And so, yeah. That's my age, yeah.
Duncan, I've noticed, and again, I've been a bit out of the loop over the last couple of months, but I've noticed he's doing a bit of the rage bait with his content. He's picking up people who have grown a following, for example, on TikTok or Twitter, who are quite clearly trying to grift others by the looks of it from the outside, who have gone off and made noise and made imaginary threats and stuff like that, and given them a platform as though that's okay. Going into the election year, is this a trick that you think we're going to see more of as a distraction or as a way of trying to endorse the views of the current coalition?
it's not something that's really on my radar at the moment. I have seen Duncan Garner platform people that I don't think he doesn't. I've seen him platforming people, let's just say, less reputable, who have that social media following. Again, people who I don't want to give them the satisfaction of saying their name. Here's what I noticed about Duncan. Duncan, when he was on TV3, when he was hosting the breakfast show, was a pretty kind of milquetoast commentator. You know, couldn't pick him out of a lineup. He went independent a couple of years back, maybe a few years back, did his podcast. And if you kind of look at his views on TikTok, on YouTube, if you go back to the beginning, and at the beginning, he wasn't doing terrible commentary. I would see him and I'd be like, oh, where's this Duncan been? And when he wasn't doing terrible commentary, he was also getting shitty fucking viewership. He was also getting terrible numbers. And then he started leaning into the white grievance. He started scapegoating of Te Pāti Māori. Then he started scapegoating Māori in general. He started this false equivalence between the left and the right. And all of his framing were, whenever his criticisms of the right would kind of arise, he would just say, well, come on, that's no better than the left. And that's how he seems to frame all his criticism for the right. And I think I'm not going to say he's a victim of audience capture, because I think it was a calculated move on his part, because his podcast was initially doing really shitty numbers. And so someone did say, I initially said Ryan Bridge. I think I stand corrected. Someone in the comment section had a much better analysis of Ryan Bridge, that he is New Zealand's Timu Jesse Walters.
I missed it. I need to go back and find that one.
Well done. Well done. That's such an excellent.
There's this one here about being Sean Plunkett.
It's a light version of Alex Jones. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these guys, and it's pretty pathetic, because you can tell what they're doing. And I think that's accurate. Sean Plunkett is a lightweight version of Alex Jones. I think that's accurate. I don't like Alex Jones, so I am a little bit hesitant to pay him this compliment. But the man is captivating. You can watch Alex Jones for. I can watch him for hours. Just have these meltdowns, and of course, what he is saying is repugnant. But he's like a car crash. You can't look away. You can look away from Sean Plunkett. It's very easy to look away from Sean Plunkett. And I think these guys, they see figures like Trump, they see figures like Alex Jones, and they think, oh, I'm going to replicate them, and I'm going to be able to kind of be this version of them. And it's like, no, because as horrid as these figures are, people like them. They have. Go ahead, Paul.
Speaking of people liking them, I'm going to bring somebody else in who people like. Kia ora, Jordan.
The elusive.
I know. Can you hear us okay, Jordan?
I am here.
He
is here. I can hear you okay, yeah.
Excellent. How are you holding up?
Brilliant. I'm okay. It's been a long beginning of the year. I don't know if you can hear my voice, but yeah, tired. But good to be here. I don't know. I'm so sorry to be late, but I didn't want to miss this one for the beginning of the year because I'm excited and pumped. I don't mean to interrupt Sean though. Please carry on.
We were
just ranting about Sean Plunkett.
I was just ranting about Sean Plunkett. So you came in, you got me while I'm hot. Sean Plunkett and figures like Duncan Garner, Ryan Bridge, I think they see kind of media figures and political figures on the right with a lot more charisma than they have, and they think, I can replicate that. But what you have to understand is you have to replicate that it factor, that they simply don't have. I don't know how somebody in the comment section just said that Alex Jones was the crackpot radio host in Austin that found his niche in podcasting and became a grifter that denied all his previous beliefs. Well, he has that in common with a lot of people. So I guess we're back onto the Duncan Garner comparisons.
Actually, I have a question for you, Jordan, about the right-wing media. You've just got back from Waitangi. There is obviously a ton of media up there, a ton of everything going on. Did you get to? Was there much right-wing media presence up there? I know there's a left-wing presence. I know Pat's been up there. I know Gerard Otto's been up there. But is there the same sort of presence from right commentators like Sean or Duncan or anybody else for that?
No. Not on the ground. I don't really think that they do hit the ground as much, excuse me, as left-wing commentators or media in general. I think in general the right-wing media tends to just report from what they've seen and pick up other headlines and stay in their studios. There doesn't seem to be that on-the-ground presence for them, no.
I think it kind of also speaks to a pampering in the right-wing media space that maybe the left wing don't have. And I often think, geez, I have the wrong politics because I see so many of these right-wing figures making so much bank, making so much money, just fucking playing into white grievance. And I think there is an element of laziness. I think there is, because I think especially in someone like Duncan Garner's case, I don't think he believes half the shit he says. I don't think he believes it because he used to say the opposite of what he says now a few years back when he was getting 3 viewers. I think that right-wing media attracts people who are inherently lazy, who aren't willing to do the mahi that left-wing commentators do. So I think there's an element of that as well. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, guys, because it does seem something that is, you don't often see right-wing figures on the ground in the way that you do see left-wing commentators.
I think you need to be very careful in how you define what a right-wing commentator can be too sometimes, because I'm sure people like Tova were there, because they're news, but their way that they produce the news and present the news can be seen as right-wing, but they're not necessarily right-wing commentators, but they're still in that kind of sphere for some people. So I think seeing somebody like Duncan Garner there would probably give people a heart attack because what's he doing here? But seeing somebody like Tova, for example, which shouldn't be that much of a shock, or Jenna Lynch, for example, and she's got very clear links to the ACT party. So the fact that people sit there not seeing that link sometimes concerns me, but it's what people do. In terms of the way that media covered Waitangi this year, did you guys get a chance to have a look at it all or see much of it?
Not much of it. I've only just gotten back, so I haven't really seen what the headlines are saying or what's really being picked up so much. But what have you seen?
I actually did something.
Oh yeah, yeah. I thought this would be it. Yeah. For those who may be listening to this, Paul has brought up a collage of headlines with a heavy focus on Te Pāti Māori drama and perhaps
drama in general.
Yep. What could basically kind of a framing of the hysterical left. So we see Prime Minister rejects opposition, claim that government is anti-Māori. Luxon heckled during speech. Opposition infighting. Which is prepared to challenge government ahead of Prime Minister's visit, to name a few. So, yep. I was going to speak to this. It did seem like they were looking for, because if you were there, Jordan, you'd be able to tell us. It seemed like a pretty comparatively compared to years past, quite maybe more chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was almost disappointingly chill. Not that I'm, looking for the drama or whatnot, but I think we're off the back of Treaty Principles Bill, so things weren't so heated. There wasn't that big movement that was happening at the same time, and also a part of that will be political fatigue in the public as well, where people are just wanting to take a bit of a break. People know that it's an election year and it's going to get quite punchy. But no, if you look at these headlines and compare it to what was actually happening on the ground, it was sausage sizzles and people jumping in the waka and, people doing art projects together, kids running around having fun. The politicians themselves, even just walking around the markets, well, some of them walking around the markets and enjoying themselves, meeting people face to face and talking to them and enjoying themselves. So these headlines are really focusing on a small part of it.
Yeah, I would imagine there is one of those small parts that I would like to make a mountain out of a molehill on, however. And that was David Seymour being heckled.
Oh, yeah.
That is something I want to kind of speak about because I have a theory on this. And David Seymour was booed at the event to the surprise of nobody for countless reasons, be it his rolling out of the Treaty Principles Bill, trying to kind of calling for the banning of hangi at voting booths, trying to persuade Māori from voting, countless reasons. I've got a theory on it. I think David Seymour knew he was going to be booed. I think kind of like the wrestling people that he kind of wanted to be at that event. I think his audience wasn't the people who were in front of him. His audience were his own supporters. And I think that's what his speech was towards. I saw it as kind of an exercise in trolling. He wanted and an exercise in inviting boos. And I was watching it. I'm like, this guy is just like a wrestling heel. He's like the bad guy coming out, talking smack about the city he's in, talking about the people, making fun of the lady in the wide dress in the front row. That's kind of what he was kind of doing, the political version of that. I'd be curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are on David Seymour's speech and his subsequent booing.
So I think it was Glenn McConnell from Stuff who actually started off after Seymour's speech going, I think Seymour wanted a reaction and he didn't get as much of one as he thought. That's why he did a press stand-up straight away. And that's what both Stuff and RNZ ran with as well. It's like Seymour gives press stand-up after being booed because it gives him the headlines. RNZ, I think it was... No, Stuff also did an interview with somebody who had one of the conches there that was blowing that while Seymour was talking. And the question that they asked her was, why are you doing it? He goes, because he's a dick. I don't want to listen to him. I'm just like, that's perfect. I wish we could all do that.
Yeah. Let's normalize that. I remember a time when that was just normal.
Like Rivers do you remember those?
Yeah. I remember when people would just say, shut up. Remember, shut up.
Yeah.
I just don't want to hear from you.
I do think that's it, though. Like, as much as I say that I was almost disappointed at how calm things were, I think Seymour was more so. I mean, Seymour and ACT have really set themselves up in such a way where they are only as relevant as the thing that, as the other side of it. So it's almost kind of like Te Pāti Māori and ACT the whole way up have kept each other at relevant points, one-upping each other constantly. And so I think Seymour loved these events. And as much as I understand that the tikanga of the space is that everybody should be allowed to be there and talk, before it even began, I was like, I just feel like David isn't here for this, or isn't here for the people that are here, or isn't here for the people listening to Waitangi. I think David is definitely just talking to his socials. And part of that is evident because when he didn't get that reaction, what went up on his social media wasn't a clip of the speech, which is what it would normally have been. It was a clip from him in the house talking with clips of random other things and some Waitangi stuff as well. So he clearly does want that reaction, and it helps him build his narrative of the, crazy left and the infighting and the anti Maori stuff.
When you compare that to Winston, do you get that same impression? Because Winston got up there and was very grumpy at people heckling him, and then he turned around and, young whippersnappers can't pronounce a word in Te Reo Māori, but he's still sitting there going, this isn't a place for politics. You're here to listen to me, a politician who's been politicking for 50 years. Do you think that Winston's walking into it with the same attitude as Seymour, or is Winston there for other reasons?
Winston's kind of a funny one because I think his tactic isn't working as good as it used to. I'm finding more and more people, there's always been a charm, and even me on the left, and I really don't like Winston myself, I understand that there is a charm to Winston and the way that he works the crowd, you could say. But I'm finding more and more so people are actually getting tired of it. And even his own kind of people, the usual suspects that would love that, are kind of like, okay, this is just a lot of nothing. I think, here we go. Someone in the comment section has it perfectly. It is a lot of just old man yelling at the clouds. He's recycling a lot of old lines. I think what's his whole thing of don't worry, help is on the way. I don't know how many election cycles he can pull that line out.
Let's make New Zealand first again.
Is that, yeah, there we go. I think people are getting tired of it. I think he enjoys the controversy, but I don't think he thinks that he needs it. He's always been very comfortable with his 10%,
What would you attribute that to? Because I agree. I certainly agree. It does seem like I very much agree with your assessment. I've never liked Winston at a policy level. I've never liked him. But as somebody who has followed politics since he was a kid, I can't say that as a politician, you can't help but respect.
Yeah.
I don't know if respect is the right word. You can't help but almost admire his longevity. He seems to be, and he's like, this is going to sound like an insult. It's almost a compliment in politics. He's almost like a cockroach. You stand on him, and you can't fucking get rid of the guy. There have been so many times over the past decades where you think the guy is gone, and then he returns like herpes. And
Can we have a cream for Winston, please?
and I have always attributed that to the fact that he's just, as a politician, he's good at his job. Yeah. And it does feel like lately there does seem to be something missing. Oh, and I don't know if it's from him or from us. I would be curious to know what your gauge is, Jordan.
I actually don't know. I think it could be a little bit of both. I think Winston is getting on. He's 80-something now, isn't he? How old is he? 82?
81.
81. I think it is starting to show. But I also think, in the nicest way possible, I think his audience is a group that is only getting smaller as the years go on. You know what I mean? I mean, like, my grandfather was a really big Winnie supporter. Grandfather loved him.
My grandmother was too.
Yeah. But they've passed, and I just don't have the same need to beat down on immigrants every 3 years, and I don't think many people have a stomach for it anymore.
Certainly not. And I will say this. I think there is going to be a place, and I'm not necessarily talking about the immigrant part of New Zealand First, but in terms of what New Zealand First used to kind of represent, because they used to be the party for the elderly. That's how Winnie P used to present himself.
It has glided on the gold card for 30 years.
Oh, yeah. That has done a lot of heavy lifting for Winston Peters.
They vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They vote.
And, they vote. There is going to be a place for New Zealand First if they want to kind of be the party for the elderly, because I think, and it's more going to be for the Gen X and millennial generation as we get older, because superannuation is going to be a massive. The cost of superannuation in 2030. In 2030, January 1st, 2030, the last of the baby boomers will turn 65 years old. That will be when every baby boomer is receiving a superannuation payment. That is going to come at a massive cost, and it's going to create a lot of anxiety for people in Generation X and the millennials who are going, hey, this cost is really ballooning. And is it going to be something that's extended to our generations? I think a political party that eases that anxiety, I think there is going to be a place for them. I don't think Winston, with all due respect, or all due respect as you can offer to someone like Winston, I don't think he's going to be around when we're having that conversation. So I do think there is a place for that element of New Zealand First policy. Whether or not there's somebody within New Zealand First who can kind of see the writing on that wall, time will tell. But yeah, I agree. It does feel like, it does kind of make me sad. This is a guy who, love him or hate him, and I hate him. This is a guy who you can't deny has had his political career has been a movie script. He's kind of like the anti-Forrest Gump, where he's Forrest Gump if Forrest Gump did everything horrible. But there's been some elements of kind of like the fact that he was banished from his party, created a third party, which at the time was historic. New Zealand First, New Zealand First in the mid-90s was the idea of kind of a third competitive political party was unheard of. New Zealand First, Winston created that with New Zealand First.
Yeah.
And you love him or hate him, that is something that you can't help but admire. It did create the path it contributed to the path for MMP, which I think has been a net positive in our elections. And to see where Winston is now compared to where he was then, it does make me sad. I remember, and sorry to get all wrestling bro on you guys, but a few years ago, I think it was 2021, 2022, Ric Flair wrestled. Now, for those who don't know, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, he was like in the 80s and maybe early 90s, this guy was the man. He was wrestling at 76 years old. And you see him wrestle that last match, and you're shaking your head. You're worrying for his health, and you're thinking, geez, this is what people are going to remember you for. They're not going to remember you for all the great things you did. They're going to remember, it brings to mind Winston, because people like Paul, people aren't going to remember Winston for the gold card. They're not going to remember him for the gold card. They're not going to remember him for his achievements with making New Zealand First in the mid-90s a competitive third party. We're not going to remember him for that. You have to be really dialed in to know what he did. Do you know what people are going to remember? People are going to remember him standing before the UN and representing New Zealand as one of the only countries to not recognize Palestine as a state. Yeah. They remember him as a guy who was deputy prime minister for, I think, I don't know what the actual number is, but for 25 of the past 30 years, he's been prime minister. They're going to remember him as a guy who talked about everything he wanted to do while also being second in power for most of that time. That's what they're going to remember him for. And they're going to remember.
I think that's one of my favorite bits of research data from last month. Well, I think it was RNZ that did it with their research poll. New Zealand First voters are the ones who feel that they are the most negatively impacted by this coalition's policies and actions, and the most likely to vote for New Zealand First still, because they think that's the party that's going to bring change. And to me, it's just like a little kid touching the stove over and over again, no matter how hot it is. But they keep going back because it's always doing the same thing. I've got to pose a tricky question for you then. In 2023, New Zealand First candidates, as insane as some of them were running around telling voters that they were centrist, that New Zealand First is still a centrist party. We hate anybody of colour, and Indigenous people can go screw themselves, but we're centrist. Top claims to be a centrist party.
Hmm.
Are they a better alternative for 2026 voters if somebody wants a centrist party than New Zealand First?
You're opening up a can of worms here, Paul. I'll let Jordan go first. I'll let Jordan go first. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm still
Or is there
investigating.
another option here?
In terms of the first question about whether or not Top is a better alternative to NZ First, I really don't know, guys. I'm really lost on this one. I've been watching a lot of the things that they've put up. They feel kind of contradictory. I'm not a big fan of anybody that says that they're proudly centrist. That to me just says they want to be in power, or like, what do you stand for then? I just don't have time for it. And I'm also concerned about where people seem to think the center is these days, because it feels like the center seems weirdly over to the right a little bit more.
The center is right. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Right wing. If you're a centrist in 2025, you're right wing.
Yeah.
You're a John Keane, Mitt Romney. You're in that crowd. You are a rhino. That's what you are. Like when we have gotten to a point where we are shooting people in the streets in the US. Like, you're getting to that fascist point. If you're in the center of that, you're right wing. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I was about to say 2 minds. I'm of like 15 minds in regards to Top. I think, Jordan, you're right when you say that we don't know what they stand for. I'm going to let you in on my gauge on Top. I don't think they know what they stand for yet.
Yeah.
I think here's my theory on Top. I think they're waiting for National or Labour, one of them. I think they're waiting for them to offer a sweetheart deal for an electorate, the way that National did for David Seymour. And
they kind of did that in the last election as well, didn't they? With Ralph Manji in Christchurch.
That's
you should do it. Labour should do it. Why won't Labour do it? I'm sure they'll do it any day now, and it never happened.
Yeah. So what I think right now, we don't know whether or not they're centre left, centre right. I think it depends on who chooses them, if they get chosen at all. And I can't help. This is a dicey kind of conversation to have, and it's one that we kind of need to tread carefully on, because I want to kind of make this point clear from the outset. The idea of a Te Pāti Māori, of an Indigenous party, I want to see in Parliament. I want to see that. Yeah. I would love a coalition where Labour, the Greens, and Te Pāti Māori can form a coalition and form a cohesive electable government. And electable is the key word there.
Yeah.
I do worry that if the left coalition lose this year, it will be because I think that the turmoil in Te Pāti Māori would have, I'm not going to say be a big contributor, but certainly would be, I think a conversation needs to be had. I'm almost wondering if, almost as an insurance policy, if Labour were to kind of offer Top the kind of sweetheart deal that National offers David Seymour, just as an insurance policy. And I know, and I'm almost not sold on my own kind of pitch here, weirdly enough, because there are a lot of people who say, hey, we don't know anything about Top. Yeah. They're proven. Apparently there is a lot of kind of inner turmoil, the kind of sensible centrist, what they try to present isn't necessarily what happens behind the scenes. And you guys are right. I think it is a conversation worth exploring, because if Te Pāti Māori are not in a state to kind of have the negotiations that we want to have, New Zealand First is the alternative. And from what I've seen from Top, I think I would rather Top than New Zealand First. I would rather Te Pāti Māori than both of them. But Te Pāti Māori really need to get their proverbial together and to avoid that.
Well, what would be important for me as a voter would be to know Top's stance on Te Tiriti o Waitangi and where it stands in our constitution, where they think it should feature and shouldn't feature, or how much of it should. But I just feel like there's a severe lack of information around that. And as a New Zealander, as a voter, I really fucking care about that treaty. That's a big deal to me. So that would be something that I would love to know more about from them.
If there's ever a moment in our history to give a shit about it, it's now, isn't it?
Exactly.
When it's most under threat, when it's being kind of, when schools are being mandated, well, when schools are being told that we no longer have to honor it. Like what like when I say that, like sometimes you hear things and you kind of report on things, but then when you say the sentence out loud, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And that is, that is understandable. And Top I haven't heard Top say anything about it. And again, I think it kind of comes down to them kind of playing their kind of keeping their cards hidden, because for them it's kind of coming down to, it's a case of, if we want to be appealing to the right wing, we don't want any paper trail of us supporting policies that are antithetical to what they stand for. Yeah. Not saying it's right. It isn't. I'm saying that's probably what they're thinking. That's an interest. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had.
Is it too early for any of the parties really to give us the full gamut of policies, though? And it's only February. We're 10 months out from the election. We've got time to learn a little bit about the parties and the policies. Labor's been really good at coming out early and giving us actually a raft of policies. We haven't actually seen that from any of the other parties so far, with a huge raft of policy points. Are we judging too quickly when it comes to something like Top versus New Zealand First for people who think they're centrist? Which is my judgment.
No, my judgment's reserved. That's where I am. I'm just like, I would love to know more about them, but I think in order for me to know more about them, I feel like they need to know more about them. It doesn't feel like there's a clear through line message with the party other than we're proudly centrist, which feels purposely vague, perhaps, so they can kind of float around, gauge the public over the next coming months, and then roll stuff out. Maybe that's their play. So quietly reserved on that, but yeah.
One of the things I do like about Top, though, is that I have not once heard any of their candidates or anything from their organisation that is vehemently hateful. New Zealand First is really big on their anti-trans stuff. Winston has a long history of being anti-rainbow. Here in Tamaki, it's Pride Month. It's the kind of thing that people often forget, because the same-sex marriage law was 15 years ago, I think. Civil unions was close to 20 years. The legalization of homosexuality is coming up 40 years. So it's Winston's voted against all of those when he's been in power. I don't think he got to vote against same-sex marriage. I think New Zealand First was out at the time. But there's nothing hateful that I've seen from Top in that respect.
Have they? I don't know what their history in the previous. I don't really pay too much attention to them in 2023, 2022. Was there anything in there that stood out to you if you were following them?
I did. I was following them at that time. Not to say I was supporting them, but I was kind of keeping tabs on them. Something that I found, something that kind of was underreported. It was in the news for like a couple of days and then went. And I thought it was really, really interesting. It was when, I don't know if you guys, the kind of like, when around election time, people are kind of encouraged to take a kind of survey of policy positions that they support. And then it will kind of tell you, hey, this is the party that you should be voting for this coming election. And when they showed where most people were at in regards to that, Top, I think, was fourth. Top was as high as fourth. And that told me, okay, in 2023, at least, there is a place for Top when you consider policy demographics. So what I would kind of describe Top in that last election would almost be social libertarian. Kind of to the left economically, very clearly to the left economically of National. to the right of Labour economically. In terms of kind of cultural and social policy, they were libertarian, kind of like, you know, the libertarian attitude of live your life. That was my gauge. And I think there is a place for that when you look at kind of voter makeup. A lot of people do identify in that in terms of the policy. We haven't seen that really. There was a big focus on making housing affordable in 2023. With
the housing thing is what I remember, and I think that's the most common positive thing that I heard was that they had understandable and reasonable, which are two pretty good words, housing policy and housing ideas. And at that time, housing was everything, right? That was kind of our main topic, was the cost of housing and renting. Are they still that? What are they now? I have not heard any of that.
Very accurate. They're nothing. Like, I don't mean to.
I think they're trying to reinvent themselves a bit.
I think right now they're kind of trying to see where the wind is blowing. I feel it seems to me that they probably think they're the prettiest girl at the ball, waiting to see who's willing to dance with them. And whoever chooses them first, that's the route they're kind of going to go down. They're almost kind of like a modern day United Future. I kind of see them as. And I think in regards to their policy, it depends on who's going to choose them. And here's where we kind of need to get realistic. I think eventually, especially as we see Te Pāti Māori and New Zealand First numbers continue to dwindle, I think eventually they are going to find themselves in Parliament, and it's going to be through somebody offering them a sweetheart deal. Whether it be National or Labour, I think it comes down to who offers it first.
I don't think Labour is very good at those kind of deals. Because if they were, they would be actively in Epsom and Tamaki as electorate saying, bite your tongue, vote National. Yeah. Because there's no way they're ever going to win those. But if they want to cock block ACT, those are the two electorates they should be telling their voters to hit National up for.
So are you saying take Labour candidates out of Epsom?
Yeah, Epsom and Tamaki. Because that's David Seymour and Brooke Van Velden. What we saw in the local body elections was ACT candidates got into those areas on local boards. So there are people who are going to vote ACT no matter what. National comes in and goes, well, we're here because we should, but, you know, vote ACT or whatever. Give us the party vote for the candidate. The left need to basically sit there and go, right, bite your tongue and vote National, because it is the lesser of the evils when it comes to who could possibly win this seat. I know. What was that?
Sorry. I was just going to say that does bring me to a question that I have for Jordan. Jordan, do you think Labour have an integrity problem and that they have too much of it?
Too much integrity?
Too much integrity. Because
the horror.
What Paul's describing, I would say, is politically quite shrewd. And it's shrewd, I would say, is not a word that you really kind of associate with left-wing parties. Because what Paul is describing could be a positive path for Labour because it cock blocks that, for lack of a better phrase. What do you say?
I actually don't know. I'm going to be honest. An integrity problem.
They have too much.
I don't know. I feel like it's too early to say at the moment. I feel like we're hot off the Waitangi. I'd like to be able to hear more from the parties once the year actually begins, once Parliament and government actually begins. But otherwise, no, I actually don't know. That's a great question, though, because I've never heard it put that way.
That's what I'm here for.
Right. We've been at this for a little while now, so I'm going to bring up the final sticky question for you both to get your perspective on this.
There's great stuff in the comments, by the way.
There's been some brilliant stuff coming through in the comments, actually. It's
brilliant.
Best audience.
Yeah. Our commenters are wicked smart.
It's so refreshing.
Yeah, I know. Party votes, absolutely. Party votes are important. Yeah. There's some brilliant stuff here. And there has actually been a couple of comments, people going, I think I'm missing something. And I think that's because if you're watching it on one platform, you don't get the comments from the other platforms come through. So if you're watching this on Twitch, you're not going to get the YouTube comments. There's a ongoing issue with StreamYard that we use for streaming that it disconnects from Facebook. So I think there might be some issues with that as well, but absolutely brilliant comments. Best audience out there. So sticky question. This one was given to me by a very old school stalwart of the Green Party. I've been a Green Party supporter since the 1996 election. The evidence-led approach to issues with a focus on environment really speaks to me. But I'm concerned the Green Party this election seems to be swinging away from calm and rational debate to rage bait style politics of the coalition. I'm concerned that if the Greens, the party known for anti-violence stances, are seen to be getting angry, the media will use that to frame the party as divisive to give the coalition a look of competence. Is this something we should be concerned with this election? Who wants to tackle it first?
A small bit of that, I'll just say, is that I think a lot of the perception of that rage baitiness and divisiveness comes from the media's the way that they're portraying the Green Party as well. A lot of it will also be how they're portraying themselves, but I think it will always look a lot worse in the media for us, as we've shown with news articles about Waitangi. I just mentioned that.
Yeah, this is something I've got very strong opinions about. And so I think something needs to kind of, I would like to kind of start from this point. The media will use that to frame the party as divisive. And this is something that I would like to see. And I think this is kind of like something that I would like to see more of from the Green Party, is that we need to be way less gun shy when it comes to the media. I think that people in the Green Party, we do take an approach of caution that I do think it gets to a point where your own messaging gets lost, and it's actually justifiable, and I get it. I get it with the Green MPs, that they might be a little bit kind of worried about kicking the hornet's nest, so to speak, when it comes to the media, because of the way that the media portrayed the Benjamin Doyle story. You've got to consider Benjamin Doyle's political career was ruined over nothing.
Yeah.
Over a raunchy Instagram handle. And I want to make that to kind of illustrate my point here. Chat. My old Hotmail address used to be Sackmaster69.
I know a former mayor of Hamilton whose personal email address was My Little Pony Lover.
You know, and
everybody has old addresses that they regret.
Yeah. Do you think if I made that my Instagram handle, do you think if my Instagram handle was Sackmaster69 and I ran for political office, that I would be getting called a groomer, that I would be getting accused of the worst things that a person could be accused of? Do you think I'd be getting accused of that? No. They'd say, Sean, change your fucking Instagram handle. That would be the extent of the controversy, that Sean Ackland had a dumbass Instagram handle. That would be it. But Benjamin Doyle was a queer member of Parliament. He was the first, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was the first openly non-binary MP. Sorry, I keep saying he. They were the first openly binary member of non-binary MP. And of course, they were scapegoated over nothing. And if it wasn't Bussy Galore, it was going to be something else.
Yeah.
And so when other members of the Green Party are maybe a little bit gun shy of the media, who can fucking blame them? And so this person asked, but at the same time, this framing of we shouldn't do X because it might invite media scrutiny. Well, it depends. It depends. is this a conversation? Like, keep in mind, we're politicians. What we want our message to be getting across to the masses. If that invites media scrutiny, let it invite media scrutiny. If they put a camera in front of your face and they ask you to extend or elaborate on something that you want to see actioned, use that. And like, the media are going to media. And we aren't here to worry about what Ryan Bridge is going to frame. We're not worried about that. You should be like, we kind of give too much reverence. I feel like in 2026, we're giving the media, the mainstream media, far too much reverence. These guys don't have the reach that I think a lot of MPs think they have. They don't have the influence that they had back in the 90s, with all due respect to this person asking the question. So I think, and also I feel like I am an authority to speak to this because I get angry. I don't know if anybody is familiar with my content. I get angry. Do you want to know why I get angry? Because anger is an appropriate reaction to the shit that these guys are trying to push through.
Yes.
How many times do you hear people when, like, 30, 40 years ago, say, like, dawn raids would be an example.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of go to somebody and say, why didn't you guys put up more of a fight? Like, this was happening for years prior to you guys actioning something. It took two community groups to form for it to even be addressed. Why did it take so fucking long? And I can tell you the answer: because people weren't getting angry enough. I think, and this is me personally speaking, I think anger is. Thank you. Yes, this person in the chat. If you're not mad, you're not paying attention. Yeah. I think anger is underrated. I do. And I think anger, when it's channeled in the right direction, can be a very, very powerful tool. The point is, you need to channel it in the right direction. And I think if the direction is this government and their right-wing extremist policies, I think that is a good place to channel it and to target it. So I get that the Green Party has always been the party of non-violence. I remember reading that and thinking, oh, yeah, sure, non-violence. I won't punch anyone. But it turns out that it's more than just that. You have to kind of be rational and calm. And it's like, Jesus, guys, our fucking planet's on fire.
Yeah.
You want me to be rational and calm? Like, can I just, and it brings to mind this moment. And I hate that she apologized for this. Julianne Genter, at the beginning of last year, standing up, walking across the room, slamming her binders in front of the national MP who was heckling her. And she was going this, and she was kind of yelling in the guy's face saying, this is a climate emergency. Why the fuck are you being so glib? That wasn't her exact words, but that was certainly her sentiment. She had to apologize for that. I kind of hate that she apologized, because when I saw that footage, it was like I was watching a Warriors game. I stood up and went, yeah, motherfucker. I was kind of like getting all hood westy on at my television. And I think, and to be honest, as it pertains to the Green Party, I think we need to do more to be I think we need to be a little bit more mongrel. There is urgency here. And in times of urgency, yes, that does evoke strong emotions. And I don't think we should hide away from those emotions. And we certainly shouldn't hide we shouldn't kind of hide or play the ball with those emotions because we're worried about what fucking Ryan Bridge is going to think.
Yeah. I think there's also selective checking of MPs as well. I always feel really bad for all of our women MPs as well, because they have to do so much less to be depicted as being angry. And I'm just like, oh, fuck it. Just as a voter, I'm actually really stoked to see people get passionate about giving it shit. Chloe doesn't have to do much. And then immediately, especially Winston will do it. All our media, other MPs on the other side will instantly depict Chloe or Marama as being just raging women. Whereas they can just like, Shane Jones can harp on about this in the woke, and just gets let off with it. And I'm just like, man,
demonic
MPs did
egg
half
beaters.
this. Yeah.
I heard a rant that Shane did about demonic fucking egg beaters, and the headlines were like, "Oh, Shane's being Shane again." It's like, come on.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if you guys, maybe Paul, you would have been more tapped into this. Didn't Winston Peters hit John Banks during a parliament debate?
There was a brief moment when that happened.
Yeah.
We've had a punch up. We've had 2 men punch up in there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's happened a bunch. How many women have had a punch up?
Maybe we should start praising some of the rage a little bit more. Maybe we don't do that enough. Maybe we should highlight some of the rage that we appreciate in Parliament.
Yeah. Has anybody here, and this is I'm including the chat, has anybody seen a film from the mid-70s called Network?
I'm as mad as hell and I can't take it anymore.
There it is. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. For those who have not seen the film Network, I think it's on Amazon. If you have that, watch it. It's from Sidney Lumet. He directed 12 Angry Men, Dog Day Afternoon. It's a classic. It's about a newsman who just has had enough. He stands up mid-broadcast. And basically, if you've seen the Sean Ackland Rage video, that was Sean Ackland Rage videos 50 years ago. It was him standing up saying all the things that are fucking wrong and him kind of leaning into the anger and hoping that the person watching gets angry as well. Because when you're angry, you fucking act.
Yeah.
Let's go through some of the comments about this, see what the chat has to say. So
just on that, sorry, can I just point out on that comment there that I just read in the thing? I don't think enough. I think there's a large group of non-voters that are non-voters because they feel disillusioned by Parliament and government in general. And I think some of that comes from a lack of understanding of how government works. And one thing I want more people to know is that one of the rules of Parliament in that house is that you're not allowed to call someone a liar. And so, because I got angry until I learned that was a rule, and I see other people get angry. They're like, why don't we just say that he's lying? Why don't we just say that? And I'm like, we can't. That's like a rule that exists in Parliament. If more people knew that, I think they would understand why certain MPs have to be clever with what they've said. Even though I think Willie said it a few times, and I'm just taking the being kicked out.
He got kicked out for calling David.
That's my favorite TikTok video of all time. Has anybody seen that one? I don't know who's doing Willie's socials, but fuck, whoever's doing that deserves a raise. Like
Willie's reply was good too, I think, because the speaker told him off and said, "You're not allowed to say that," and he said, "Well, it's in the context of what we're talking about. I'm giving a message from the Hikoi." So he was saying that it was from them. That's what they wanted to say in the House, and it's the House of Representatives. So I appreciate that, but I don't think people know you're not allowed to say it.
The cutaway was just superb. So it basically was Willie saying what Jordan just said, and then it was him just walking. The cutaway, him walking into his office. Well, kicked out again, and him kind of continuing. It's my favorite. Right. There's like a pause that, like, if you kind of screenshot him, the face that he's making walking out the door. I'm like, I know that student. That student who walks the student who walks into the dean's office going, kicked out again.
Right, so Mikey has left us a comment here going, just look at how the coalition of chaos government on Gaza, with the Greens getting passionate about that. The coalition sits there just staring and licking their eyeballs like lizards in the sun.
They laugh. They laugh even.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
No, they're not, lol. I think the Greens are coming through stronger than ever. Rage bait for sure from Tiffany Twisted. I think what this person isn't considering is that the media has always considered Greens divisive, even when they're placid.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic point. Can I just add on to that? Yeah, and this is something that I want all the Greens to hear. Greens, you do not serve the media interests. Of course, they're going to fucking target you. Lean into it. Like, they're going to target you anyway. So, yes, thank you. Intriguing. Butchered the pronunciation. Intriguing. Sorry. English,
Intriguing.
guys.
Motor Waters, they go low, we go high equals lost elections, as Kamala found out.
Yeah. Yeah. When they go low, we go lower. That's
Middle Earth Marxist with the Greens will never be presented correctly in the media. The only thing the Greens should be concerned with is authenticity, and pretending people aren't angry will be far worse strategy. Yes, focus on change and good policy, but people need to be energized, and you do that by channeling anger. We have Big Ol' V. Media will always do that anyway, whether an edit will portray that or not. At the end of the day, they sell clicks. Gel 492. Jesus, if Trump can get away with outright, blatantly racist bullshit, why on earth would the Greens be worried about anything? Magenta with the Greens are held to a much higher standard than Labour, National Act, and New Zealand First. That is so true.
That is extremely true. Yeah.
Yeah. Intriguing again with Just Double Down. There are no consequences now. Man, I wish that was true. Consequences when I do something.
Yeah.
Scruffador with they will get scrutiny no matter what they do.
Yeah.
Magenta again with they shame us for our anger and try to invalidate our reasonable rage. It's a really common thing throughout history as well. The far right really good at specifically trying to make rage look like too much of a response.
Yeah.
Mikey again with, but anger can distract away from good policies. And I actually found doing some research on the mining policy that the Greens have, cancelling any kind of fast track approval that's been given out for seabed mining or conservation land, just how much science and research has gone into their policy of no, we need to cancel this, versus New Zealand First, in particular, Shane Jones with the, oh my God, how dare they, sort of focusing on that passion kind of things. It's really interesting to see how that works, because the policy that the Greens put forward makes so much more economic sense and long-term environmental sense than let's just dig everything up and sell it off a bit at a time. And Tinkerbell here going with, I think bringing in emotion will actually help open up the voting demographic to younger voters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did that. There's like a million comments that came through.
I think that's a really good point. And you've got to consider, guys, we talk about the missing million. Those million, they're voting Greens, they're voting Labour, they're voting Te Pāti Māori. And those million maybe don't feel mobilized because maybe they don't feel like they're educated enough on the subject. So we need to do what we can to kind of appeal to them. And if that means kind of appealing to emotions, I don't see much wrong with that, as long as, again, those emotions are channeled in a positive direction.
Yeah.
And in a constructive direction, I would also add. Yeah.
A big part of it is a problem we have on the left in general is we are constantly being reactive. And I don't think that's just because we're in opposition now. I think messaging on the right is really good, largely because it's supported from overseas and so much is influenced from what's happening in America. And even a lot of New Zealanders here are still far more engaged in American politics than New Zealand politics. So when they start to look at New Zealand politics, they carry a lot of that over and a lot of that sentiment. And I find that I feel like that missing million feeling disenfranchised right now. In the next few months, it's going to be really important for us to try and make them feel like they can make a change. Because I know that a lot of them just feel like the government's corrupt no matter what, and the world's corrupt no matter what, because they're looking at overseas and they don't see enough hope here. So going forward, even with my messaging, I know I can be quite doom and gloom because I am fucking angry at the government, but I'm hoping I can provide or try and highlight as a whole some of that hope that there is for us, and try and get that missing million engaged again and understanding that actually we can make decisions for you now, and it's not going to be America.
All right, final question for you, because this should wrap us up nicely into that 2-hour mark. Is there one thing you are particularly looking forward to on the political calendar for the rest of the year between now and the election day? Something
I just want to
positive.
vote.
We both recoiled.
I just want to vote now. I'm ready to vote. No, on the calendar.
I don't know if I'm looking forward to it, but something that I am going to be curious about is so we talk about I've spoken about how, if National win, it's going to be because this happened. If Labour win, this is going to be because this happened. Here's what I think is really going to happen. Like, if National wins, it is going to be because I think the difference is going to be the people that would have shown up during that non-enrollment period that they cut off.
Yeah.
So I correct me if I'm wrong. I think the number was like 400,000 people in the last election voted within that period.
I think it's more.
Yeah. 400,000 New Zealanders voted within that period in the last election. I think it was like 100,000 were same-day enrollments.
Yeah.
National, if they win, are not going to win by 100,000 votes. It's going to be close.
Yeah.
No, but 100,000 votes for New Zealand First or ACT is a huge deal.
Yeah. So, like, I think what I'm curious about is I think there's going to be a lot of, if National win, there's going to be a lot of controversy. It's going to come with a very heavy asterisk. And I'm just curious to see what happens there. I'm not looking forward to it. But I remember when they actioned that policy, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
It's going to be a problem for the left because it's disenfranchising our votes.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be a real problem if they actually win, like, because they're going to have that big controversy behind them. I'm just very curious to see how the media handle it. I'm going to see if it happens. Hopefully it doesn't. If it does happen, I'm curious to see how the media handle it. I'm curious to see how the opposition parties handle it. Because if I'm an opposition party and we lose by a small number, bet your ass I'm going to be fucking loud about the voter disenfranchisement. So, yeah.
I wish things were louder about it now. I think it is, like, it's just such an insane thing to get rid of enrollment on voting day. Like, that's fucking insane. And then not even really be able to justify it, to just generally say that it makes things quicker, but then not being able to prove that. And then for us to have the proof that actually it doesn't make anything quicker. And then for them to still sit on that. I'm like, they did that last year so that this year they could not talk about it. And it's still not being talked about. That's a huge fucking deal. That is a government purposely trying to get rid of votes. That's fucked up. And, like, I don't know what's the percentage of New Zealanders that know about that? Like, we should really be fucking angry about that.
It should be a big red flag for everyone on the left that this is something Judith Collins turned around and said, yeah, this isn't good.
Yeah.
Judith was correct in saying that it was against our Bill of Rights. Did she action anything? No. So
she still voted for it.
Yeah, no point for you. So, and it's not just the elimination of same-day enrollment. Prison voting, they've scrapped that. They're eliminating incentives for voting. You can't serve food at voting stations. You can't do anything to invite kind of potential new voters. They're doing everything they possibly can. We talked earlier before you got onto the call, Jordan, about how they've chosen an election date that lands right in the middle of exams.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's going to be preoccupied. Like, this speaks to a very, very established pattern. And also, they're not even trying to fucking really, they're not even trying to kind of spin it. The best they came up with was, well, last election, it took 3 weeks to decide the winner. It's like, yeah, because you guys took 3 weeks to fucking negotiate. We knew who was winning the election.
The Electoral Commission gave in 2023 at the start of the year was met to the day when it came to the results. So there was no actual delay other than what Winston and Chris and David were sitting there going, well, this is all the fault of them because they're taking too long. We were told months in advance the exact schedule, and it was met.
Yeah. So, for everybody in the chat, make sure that every kind of apathetic voter, every apathetic, I won't say apathetic person, but somebody who might not be politically dialed in, it's your job to make sure they are dialed in. It's your job this year is to make them give a shit. And I'm going to do something that may seem odd here, being a left-wing commentator. If they tell you, I'm going to vote for National Act in New Zealand First, let them vote for National Act in New Zealand First, because as much as we don't want to see these parties elected, high voter turnout sends a message to politicians that they are working for us. When there is low voter turnout, you eliminate the incentive for them to do right by us. The higher the voter turnout, the more pressure these right-wing parties feel if they win elections, which they often don't if there's high voter turnout, but there have been exceptions.
I guess in terms of things looking forward to, I guess this year's budget will be interesting.
It will be.
Yes, because there's a lot to justify that has gone absolute fucking south. And it looks like
what can they take away this year to pay for their tax cuts? It was,
I mean, how much
we've had pay equity taken away.
Yeah.
Payments for disabled. Yeah.
You know, and I don't think the conversation has had enough in terms of their cuts about the repercussions for private businesses. We have seen, like Wellington, you would know Jordan is a ghost town. Like I was there a few months ago, and it made me really sad to see nobody in the streets. And like you've got to consider, just because you cut public service jobs and like public sector programs, they see repercussions in the private sector, because public service workers still use private businesses. When they don't have disposable income, the private businesses suffer. They close their doors. Many of them have, especially in the hospitality sector. Yeah. So, you know, you're not just cutting from the public sector; you're cutting profit as well from private enterprise. Yeah, I would like to see the left kind of speak more to that, to the repercussions that have happened for private businesses. Because there's still a lot of New Zealand business owners who think that National are their friend, especially small mum and pop businesses. They think, oh well, National does right by us because they're the business party. I'm like, guys, you can't serve overseas corporate interests and local Kiwi businesses. You can't serve both masters. Simply can't be done. So
what are we? We're amid the highest number of business liquidations in, is it 14 years since the last time National was in? 16 years?
16 years now.
This was 16 years ago, by the way. Just saying.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. It's the same thing over and over.
What a coincidence. How does that keep happening?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Right. I think that's us for the night. It's been 2 hours. I've got food waiting. Should probably go and have something to eat. It's been too engaging to go.
Just want to give a quick shout out to the chat, and also a quick apology for missing the past few ones of these. I'm looking forward to them going forward this year in New Zealand. But this chat is amazing, and I wish I got to read some of these comments on other platforms, because it's very encouraging. So if we can all mobilize each other, work on getting that enrollment up, and then work on getting that voting up.
I do. It is something that I like to echo. And I think it's fair to say there is a lot of overlap with all of our respective followers on social media. I truly believe we've got the best followers in New Zealand. And therefore the world, because New Zealand is the best country in the world. So stands to reason that makes you the best followers in the world. But I truly mean it. I'm like, I will regularly read my comment section, and I'll be like, geez, man, these guys are smart, they're funny, they're engaged, they're positive. Like
they give a shit.
They give a shit, you know, and it keeps me going, you know, it gives me kind of energy. So thank you so much, guys. You guys are, you know, don't change.
Don't talk.
I think it's the perfect thing to end on. I will catch you guys all later.
All right.
Peace out.
Hit the button and see if everything works for me now.
All right. I'll see you later, guys, because I also have a TV show waiting for me that I've been jonesing for. Take it easy.
See you guys.
You too.